not required to have anyone talk, but I've never denied, this board has never said that the public can't speak. So, if anyone wants to say something, we just please limit it to 2 minutes. Try not to say the same thing that everybody else said. I'll set my timer for 3 minutes, because some people, can't get to 2 minutes. Does Justin want to say something first, just to?
Sure, I'd love to.
You're representing the
Yep,
applicant?
Justin Grassi here on behalf of the applicant, attorney for the applicant. I guess I'll give a brief overview of the project itself. Over the course of over a year, we've worked with the town of Malta on the legislation, and where we have arrived at this point is a PDD which includes up to 85 condo units and 10,000 square feet of commercial space. That 10,000 square feet can incorporate a restaurant of just around 5,000 square feet of that. And the PDD involves just over 9.5 acres of land. It also will incorporate stormwater management practices, a SWIP, a stormwater prevention pollution plan, for which there currently are no stormwater controls. I believe this board has also been provided our recent traffic study, which indicates that, subject to some minor proposed mitigation, the project is expected to have minimal impact on the local traffic operations. Otherwise, I can answer any questions specifically related to the project, or any concerns you may have.
Is it okay with board members to have the public talk, or would a board member like to say something first?
I mean, I just want to ask one thing about those mitigation, one of those minor mitigation measures that you
Sure.
proposing.
I will say, first, I'm certainly not a traffic engineer in any way, but based on the report that I have reviewed, there is a GIS already for the town of Malta that has evaluated what traffic mitigation measures would be necessary based on growth within the town. One of those items which has already been evaluated and identified is a right turning lane on Plains Road. And there are traffic mitigation fees associated with the town of Malta based on that growth that we would have to pay upon site plan approval, depending on how many units we have in the commercial space. In addition, there are certain traffic mitigation measures that may be imposed by DOT. For instance, we have offered, whether or not DOT wants to do so, to shift. You may be familiar, there's the entrance to the current marina is somewhat off-center from Plains Road. And then there's a first street that is more off the HOA. We have offered to have our entranceway utilized directly across from Plains Road, and therefore the HOA can also use that entrance for their facility. If that's something that they're interested in doing. So that's on the table, certainly something that can be hashed out during the site plan approval, and with DOT and the county.
What about, does it include any pedestrian amenities, any sidewalks? Looks like the buildings on the other side of the street.
Right.
Not the lake side.
For this question, I guess the applicant is also here, Jeff Booth's here. So if you want to elaborate.
We do have pedestrian access throughout the sites, and then working with DOT and the county DPW, we would configure the crossings, and that's something that DOT is going to have the ultimate say in. But we do have pedestrian access within the sites, and we will provide access across the road to the lakeside.
And I will ask, if you have a cell phone, would you turn it on, please? Jason, you want to hit your points?
Yeah, so I think for the benefit of everyone in the room, just sort of explain what we've done here and sent out to the board, so maybe that can prevent a little bit of duplication on comments or whatever else may be out there. So we first reviewed this project just about a year ago. It was conceptual at the Town of Malta Town Board for PDD approval. We sent back a letter basically requesting additional information. It was conceptual at that point in time. That project then went on to the Town of Malta Planning Board last July. The Planning Board rejected that proposal. It's part of local law. They send that back to the Town Board with a recommendation. The recommendation was rejection. I did include those Planning Board minutes because I had some Planning Board members ask about those discussions. So just so everyone's aware, those Planning Board minutes went back out to our board. They've got that. And then, you know, a lot of those comments, and our general concerns early on were related to traffic and those intercommunity countywide impacts associated with the project. So the town engineer generated a letter on 11/29, based on a traffic evaluation done on 11/9. So the traffic study happened 4 or 5 months after the rejection by the planning board. So, just so everybody in the room's aware, we get a packet from the town of Malta as part of this referral. I'll just go through everything that was submitted to us. That is the basis of the county planning board's discussion. So we've got the draft, and all this was sent out to county planning board members via email. We've got the draft PDD legislation and the town of Malta planning board's notice of decision, our original referral letter from the Saratoga County Planning Board. The town of Malta, they perform an internal staff review letter, that was provided to us. South Shore Traffic Review, that's a review done by the town engineer on the applicant study. Site plan, the VHB study done by the engineer's applicant, the full EAF, PDD legislation. There is some discussion on the zoning interpretation done by the town of Malta, that was sent out. And we had a series of comment letters, everything that was either sent to Saratoga County Planning Board referrals email, and I know there were some typos there, so some folks were concerned. Any of those emails or emails that came to anyone in this office were all compiled and provided out to all Saratoga County Planning Board members. The first batch went 2 days ago and the last batch went today. So all the county planning board members have, everyone, if you submitted written comments, those have all been submitted for review. I will say some of those comments were items probably under the purview of the county planning board. Other items were definitely under the purview of the town of Malta planning board. So just to summarize that. We also sent out a reminder to our board of all the items that we look under general municipal law, and I'll list those quickly. Compatibility of various land uses with one another, and these are countywide or intercommunity impacts. That's the sole focus of this board. Traffic generating characteristics of various land uses in relation to the effect of such traffic on other land uses and the adequacy of existing and proposed thoroughfare facilities. Impact of proposed uses on existing and proposed county or state institutional uses. Protection of the community character as it relates to the predominant land uses, population density, and the relation between residential and non-residential areas. Drainage concerns, community facilities, whether or not the project complies with official municipal or county development policies, as may expressed through local comprehensive plans, capital programs, or regulatory measures, and anything else that may relate to the public convenience, to a government efficiency, and achieving and maintaining the satisfactory community environment. So those are the items under review by the county planning board. So just a quick summary.
Jason, just
Yep.
to
Yep.
clarify that, through the lens that we look at, or look through, all of those points are looked at whether there is a countywide or intercommunity impact.
Correct.
Period.
So that's the purview of this board,
Correct.
as opposed to the local board.
Correct.
So again, from the audience, understand the limitations that this board has.
So I'll say that, you know, some of my comments and comments we've heard from the public and you know, previous comments down to the county planning board. A PDD is usually a multi-step process. It'll usually start at the town board, goes to the planning board for a recommendation. Usually that comes back to a town board. Town board decides what to do after that recommendation, and then that goes back, if the PDD is adopted, to this planning board for a final site plan approval. I think some of the concerns that we have and are expressed by, you know, residents and county planning board members, some of those details get worked out in site plan approval. I think the problem we're facing here is the density, the use, of the site will all be established by town code by the granting of this PDD. So, typically, though, some of those items are worked out later on in the process, so just wanna clarify that.
And, excuse me, Jason, also
Yep.
within that path, if you will, of the PDD, seeker is addressed, or the potential environmental impacts are addressed at the PDD level, not at.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I'll hit on that quickly. So right now, the town of Malta, and I've got a little piece on this later, but the town of Malta is prepared, I believe, to move forward as an unlisted action. A long form has been prepared, and that is where that stands. That's what has been provided to us for review, is a long form EAF, and that was sent out to the county planning board members. So we've got 4 buildings, ranging in height from 35 to 57 feet in height. Here's a site plan in front of you. go ahead and if you want to go through these renderings. There's, just a site plan for county planning board members, it's the same map as before, with topography added on it. And then we go through a series of renderings on the building. So, building A, if you wanna just go slow Deesh back up there. Building A, this is a project on the north side of 9P, down by the water.
So as you're coming down,
This will be on the left.
down Plains Road, that's what you'll see?
That'll be straight ahead.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so this is
Lake's
the,
behind it.
yep, so this is the residential building, building A. Go ahead, Nish. Building B, this is on the south side of 9P. Go ahead, Nish. Building C, this is the clubhouse that's down behind the residential units, again, on the north side of 9P. And then go ahead, Nish, and this is building D will be on the south side of 9P. So just renderings, those buildings range in height from, like I said, 35 to 57 feet. Building A contains 24 to 26 units, 21 to 24 units in building B, 5 to 7 in building C, and 30 to 32 in building D. So, as proposed right now, the PDD originally came in for 100 units, it's down to, it has been reduced to 85 units. And a significant part of any PDD, no matter the municipality, is the public benefit associated with that project. So, the applicant has offered or as part of the PDD legislation, has offered a $3,500 fee to the town of Malta for each residential unit. That is inclusive of the recreational mitigation fees. I believe they're about $1,100 now that would have been due anyways on any project in the town of Malta. So, the additional public benefit is a dock and public spaces for emergency services and lake stewardships. There are obviously countywide concerns related to the stormwater management report. The applicant has indicated that this will conform to all New York State guidelines as far as stormwater management report. We have not seen a stormwater management report for this board to review. We did receive a previous referral from the town of Malta on update of their comprehensive plan, and this board reviewed that. As part of that, one of the recommendations in that comprehensive plan is to move away from the use of PDDs as a zoning tool. So we've also talked about the townwide GEIS and seeker related to the project and traffic. Right now, the applicant is moving forward on the premise that there will be a northbound turn lane placed on Plains Road. So how that works is the town completed a townwide GEIS. There were a number of projects, I believe 8 or so completed as part of that townwide GEIS. The town has adopted mitigation fees associated with those projects. There's about $8.5 million worth of work around the town associated with that. The applicant is, the proposed mitigation is to pay their mitigation fees, and then those improvements in the future will be done at Plains Road and 9P. Plains Road is the jurisdiction of Sarasota County DPW, and 9P is obviously the jurisdiction of New York State DOT. So that will be something that will need to be sorted out, and that's up to this board. Obviously, it's county infrastructure and state infrastructure. Our traffic mitigation fees, or the amount to be paid in, and we don't have a set dollar amount on that, that's determined by CDTC, are they enough mitigation for the proposed project? I'm trying to get there quickly, Tom.
Take your time.
Yeah, so.
I just
Wait,
learned
who
how to
said
use a
that?
crock pot. I just learned how to use a
I'm
crock
just-
pot.
I'm just
because
trying
I'm
to
doing
make
all
sure-
the cooking.
Yeah.
It had to be
So
AI
get-
generated.
Yeah. Pedestrian access, you heard the applicant comment on that. Right now, there is no improvements proposed for pedestrian access. As part of the process, the applicant will need to work with DOT and the Sarasota County DPW to provide pedestrian access across both 9P and Plains Road. Again, the concern, I think some of the concerns is these are site plan issues, but yet with the density of the proposed project, I think we need some answers on what those pedestrian improvements. How do you connect a large amount of residences immediately across the street that will be crossing the street to use the amenities that will be located along the dock shore? I've got some citations here. I think in general, the staff comments and materials submitted by the town of Malta and others, there's definitely some I would say discrepancies with town adopted master plans, comp plans, and secret documents. I won't go through those individually. I would assume that if the town of Malta decided to move forward with it, then, there will need to be documentation on the compliance, specifically with either the town GEIS studies, seeker, and those other items. So, I won't go item by that.
I hope you're all very impressed with this.
Yeah,
This
this
is-
is a lot of work.
This is a real professional here.
So underline,
I'm proud of
so
Jason.
just, this is a pre-existing non-conforming use, all right, the zoning doesn't, this was a use that was established either prior to or before the zoning, so it's operating under a pre-existing non-conforming use. The underlying zoning is R1 and R4 in this area, so those lot sizes range from, I think, 20,000 up to 40,000 square feet. So the numbers I've seen in the minutes, referenced by town staff and others, is anywhere between, I think, 12 and 13 and 18 residential units under conventional zoning. Town of Malta does have a steep slope variance, it's part of their LC code, so, Town of Malta does not allow development on slopes over 15%. Applicant has proposed development over 15% here as part of the PDD, that will be incorporated into their stormwater management plan. Did I say that correctly, Justin, anything incorrect there? Okay?
Yep.
Other than that, there's a series of materials that were sent out, and I'm just gonna wrap it up there.
Yeah, we got the 45 pages of the letters from the.
Exactly.
Do we have any site drawings to look at, or just the?
No, the only thing that's provided is the renderings.
Okay.
Jason, has the applicant talked to the sewer district? Because I know the sewer capacity was an issue.
Yes, I did, I don't know that the applicant has, early on, I touched base with Dave down at the sewer district, they will need to, there was a moratorium in this area in the past, they will need to verify capacity. When I ran the original proposal by him, they didn't think there was an issue, but obviously sewer district capacity will need to be verified. He did not anticipate any issues there.
Except that and.
They would have to apply for a
even the-
permit.
Right, but even though the units has been reduced slightly, a year has gone by or some time, so other things within that same collection system.
I did touch base with him the other day. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but the applicant will, as part of this process, need to seek approval from Saratoga County Sewer District as well as water supply. Saratoga County Water
Has there
Supply.
been any correspondence with the fire department that handles this area? Are the buildings gonna be sprinklered? Is their equipment adequate to handle the height?
I did not see any correspondence in my materials that were provided.
That's a good question.
Jeff, do we have any correspondence from the fire department? I
I don't believe we have at this point.
That similarly, I mean, we'll obviously be complying with all New York State building codes, fire suppression systems that are required. But we haven't gone into that level of detail with some of the entities, given, you know, we are still at that zoning legislation, you know, before we have actual plans.
And I think that's a challenge with, and I'll leave it at this, with, both our review and probably the municipal planning board is, it's a significant increase over the existing zoning, and some of these issues probably need to be worked out, but understanding the applicant's concern that, you know, they need the PDD legislation in place to make investments in that. So I think that's a balancing act that is, you know, is out there, certainly.
So any other board members, otherwise we'll open it up to the public and then the board members can go into it, yeah. So if it, yeah,
Well, I do,
yeah, Don?
because Jason's more familiar, I did look over some of the materials, again, it didn't seem like there was anything in the materials that were provided to you about visual analysis or visual compatibility with the neighborhood.
No, I did not see
Other
those.
than
The renderings and the site plan are all the materials related to the site plan that were provided to us.
And I read the seeker, there was no visual assessment attached to that.
Or any other material attachments.
If you'd like, I can elaborate a little bit on that. One of the items obviously was that the town board is evaluating is a visual analysis, and in that respect, from what you saw a year ago, we have dropped from the, coming down Plains Road, that main building, we've dropped that down a story. And the intent there is that we will be similarly situated as far as height to what was previously there. So at least from the visual aesthetics of coming down Plains Road, we actually, we did provide not necessarily a visual impact report, but we did depict what it would look like coming down Plains Road with the elevations at the base and the removal of what's currently there, which is a number of trees, and wrapped boats, so that we believe the end result is something that's visually more pleasing, than what is currently there, at least from your travels down Plains Road, looking towards the lake.
Those docks that are shown here in this area, are those existing?
No?
Existing are 160 dock slips, and we are proposing to reduce that to 100 dock slips. So 160 do currently exist. Whether it's in that exact configuration, I believe it is, but I think there's actually some additional.
They would be for residents only.
So residents only, with the exception, well, I shouldn't say that. They're either for residents or the commercial uses, and then they are also reserved for fire department, police department, and lake stewardship. So we will be reserving some slips for those uses.
And where is the closest town line to this?
Just down to the west, maybe 3/4 of a mile, if that.
If
Still
that,
If that.
you know where the Stewart's is?
It's right there.
It's right there.
No, where's the tourists?
So that zoning, is either, residential lakefront, or there are some PDDs further down, single-family residences.
Okay,
But it also sounds like there's conversation about public access. It sounds like there's nothing to the water.
So originally, the applicant provided public access, and correct me if I'm wrong, and up to a certain number of slips. That was removed from the first proposal, and there is no public access provided right now, minus the 3 community service facilities being police, fire, and lake stewards.
Yeah, to elaborate on that, originally there was a launch, a public access launch for purposes of kayaks, canoes, along with parking spaces. In the discussions with the town, while that was certainly seemed to be a benefit, they wanted something larger. So I think what's really kind of happened here is, as this board probably knows, is the town has now purchased Manginos, and in lieu of our access that would have provided the kayaks, canoes, we offered what the town board seemed to want, seemed to prefer, which would be some monetary benefit, monetary public benefit that they could apply to their own area and improve. We were simply just limited on space, so to the extent they wanted a larger public realm, we couldn't provide that.
okay, so if, in the interest of this working well, what I'd like to do is begin with that young lady at the end and work our way around if anyone wants to say something. Everyone on this board has been in land use for a long, long time. We are always sympathetic, empathetic to neighbors. We understand, your property is probably the most valuable thing that you'll ever have. So with 2 minutes, you don't have to talk, young lady,
I would love to.
but you can.
I hope I can
Mr.
do
Chair?
this quick.
Yeah.
Don't we wanna have?
I have
Hang on a minute.
some
Hang on a minute.
questions
Hang on a
about.
minute.
Hang on a second.
Hang on a minute.
Don't we want everybody that's gonna speak to say their name and their
Good
address?
idea.
Yes.
I'm sure they have the last time, we had a public hearing.
Yeah, I did. 11 Stony Point Road in Malta. I didn't get that.
Can you repeat that, ma'am?
I'm sorry, would you say that again, please?
Kathleen Basin, 11 Stony Point Road in Malta.
Okay, Kathleen.
And I have some
2 minutes.
questions about the traffic study, but I wanna ask quickly first, so this concept of 9 whatever acres it is that the PDD is to go on, this is part of that whatever 9 acres, right? So that's not even being really included in the density of this project. This is actually even less acreage, am I reading that
So
correctly?
all parcels combined are 9 acres in size. I will say there's obviously several letters referenced a zoning determination by the town of Malta. The town of Malta made a zoning determination that this is a commercial PUD. I will say that's a local land use decision made by the town of Malta. It's outside the purview of this county planning board.
So does that mean it goes to that concept of 3 acres
It
for
doesn't-
commercial
The
development?
determination was made by the town of Malta that this is a commercial PUD. Whether that information is satisfactory or not to individuals in the room, that's a local code enforcement decision.
Okay.
And there are avenues if if residents are concerned with that, then that, that discussion was with the town of Malta, not the Saratoga County Planning Board.
Traffic study, can you tell me how that's done, when it's done? Was any of it done in the summer between June and August when the traffic on 9P is crazy? We've got giant horse trailers, which we're already starting to see, that are going to the horse farms over in Stillwater. We've got people towing their boats up 9P. I mean, it's gonna definitely impact not just the traffic there in Malta, but all the way up through Stillwater. Was any of that done in the summertime?
It was not done in the summer, but calculations were made for summertime peak hours. So I would encourage you, we receive materials that are submitted to the town of Malta. I wanna make that clear. We do not get anything above and beyond what's provided to the town of Malta, sometimes less than what's provided to the town of Malta. So there is a very long traffic study that I'm sure some of you are aware that I would encourage you to take a look at. Really gets into the nuts and bolts associated with that project.
But, okay, I was just curious as to the time of year it was performed.
It was in the fall.
You said November 9th. I believe.
November 9th was a letter that was provided
That
to
was
the
the letter,
municipality.
but we don't know when it actually, the study.
It was
over
done in the
what
fall.
period of
If you
time.
wanna continue, I'll find it in here.
Oh,
This is the
all right.
packet, so I will.
Well, I was just curious,
Yep.
because there's a huge difference in the traffic, and I'm
Understood.
also wondering if it took into consideration a lot of the side roads off of 9P, there's a lot of development happening up in there too. So there's gonna be more and more and more traffic coming down onto Route 9P from, Stillwater all along. There's a lot of stuff going on back there. And there's a lot of traffic when Global Foundries lets out every day. I don't know if anybody's driven 9P when Global Foundries, when it's shift change. You get some big traffic backups at a lot of those intersections. I think that's it.
Thank you very much. Good, I appreciate your brevity. And I gotta figure out how to shut this thing off. You don't have to talk, you don't have to.
Brief, very brief.
Oh, we love grief.
11 Stony Point Road. So amazing, you know.
What's your name?
Paul Mason.
Oh.
I happen to be married to Kathleen. We even live in the same house.
How novel.
Briefly about I know this board doesn't preside over what's designated as residential, what's designated as commercial, but this development has 120,000 square feet or more of residential and 10,000 square feet of commercial usage space, and yet it's zoned commercial. That's it. That doesn't seem quite right to me.
Thank you for your comment, Paul. Young lady? Okay. Oh, I love Kathy.
I'm ready.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Skip me.
Shake your head.
Dan Mitchell, 12th Shore. First of all, I am not anti-development at all, but I do have some concerns. I believe parking is a concern, especially with the commercial. I was in the restaurant business for 40 years. A 5,000 square foot restaurant during the busy time, if the restaurant's any good, needs a minimum of 120 parking stalls, or the restaurant will fail. All right? One of the first thing I did when we were developing hundreds of restaurants all over the country was if we couldn't get 180 parking stalls, we passed. So that's one, to take a real hard look at the parking, particularly with a 5,000 square foot restaurant that probably is gonna have 180 seats roughly in that kind of restaurants. And of course, all the employees bring cars and everything else. So that's one concern. The crossing of 9P, I don't know how that's going to be done without a red light. I mean, that's a, I don't, look, there's probably, if this thing happens, there's probably gonna be quite a few older folks, owning, or some, but I don't know how you're gonna get across without a red light and one of those timers letting you know how much time you have to get across the road. And then if you put in a red light, now that backs everything up. What happens over there is First Street, Second Street, Third Street are the preferred roads to get up to 9P. So I live right at Second. So in the morning, I'll sit there and everybody comes down Shore Road. They don't come out of 7th, 6th, they come all the way down and they either go up Second or they go up First because they have the less incline. And it's much easier to get out to 9P. When you come up Third, for example, I mean, you're like this. And there's not enough room on most of these roads if somebody's going out and someone tries to come in at the same time. I've dodged that bullet quite a few times. So the crossing is an issue with me, and then, you know, I just, like I said, I'm not anti-development, I just think it's too big. It's too big. The lady mentioned all the development. I think you all know there's 139 units happening here, and there's 150 units happening here. And I think we've been there about 19 years so far. And it's just amazing the difference in the traffic in 19 years. And you can only imagine what it's gonna be in the next 10 to 20 years. I mean, look at the lake. The homes they're building on the lake. They're just knocking down the little homes and they're building these big, beautiful homes. And, you know, I think we need to think of the future as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So back to the first individual that spoke, I'm reading from, and correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, the existing traffic summary volume on page 3 of the letter. That data was collected in 3 dates, and then there's a factor applied for, you know, into the future. So those dates were May of 16, April of 19, and September of 19.
That's correct.
Yes.
My name is
Okay,
Connie
that's your
Gordon, I'm
question.
at 23 Stony Point Road.
Okay.
We've been there over 40 years. I just can't imagine how it's gonna look to have this huge monstrosity in our beautiful view of the lake and the lake shore. And coming down Plains Road, it's so pleasant to be able to just see the lake and a few pine trees on the side, and all that's gonna be taken away from us. It's just gonna, and it's gonna get too busy, and I'm concerned also about people crossing the road. I just don't think that this fits on Saratoga Lake, especially where it's proposed to be.
Thank you, Connie.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Susan Nottawall, I live in Malta.
Susan?
Yes. I have all the same aesthetic concerns that everybody else has, but I think my biggest concern is the crossing on 9P. The driving on that road at times is treacherous. People go really fast. It's a 2-lane road. I'm just trying to imagine, and it's got a lot of blind curves. I'm trying to imagine people trying to cross that street with any, even, well, I guess a red light would be the only answer, but then that's a whole nother set of problems. But I just feel like it's a very treacherous location to have people trying to cross the street.
Thank you, Susan.
I'll pass it.
Oh, you might pass.
Well, I'm Linda Litwin, Second Street in Malta. I pretty much agree with everyone that has spoken with, the traffic issues are huge. Because on Second Street, I'm gonna be trying to come out onto 9 feet. I might be sitting there till Christmas.
Okay.
Kathy Eddy, 26 Shore Avenue. First, I want to object to the idea that even a 2-story building would be more attractive to look at coming down Plains Road than trees. The blue covered boats only in winter, and it is a lake. We all understand why there are blue covered boats there at a lake in winter, and the people who have boats on the lake need somewhere to have to put their boats. Hence, blue covered boats. My final comment, it's a prime location on our beautiful lake. It's right there, front and center. For us as a community, for our children, for their children. It's our responsibility, I think, to really think hard and long about what we want that to look like, feel like, be like, how it can serve all of us.
Thank you, Kathy.
I'm Hugh Eddy, I'm her husband, also 26 Shore Avenue.
And we also live together.
And we're one of those terrible people that live a little further over, and we do drive over to 2nd and 1st Street to get on. It's absolutely true that those are the roads that are used. third, fourth, fifth, sixth are used much less. So it's either seventh to the east or second to the west that are pretty much 95% of the traffic in and out of our little world. The traffic, it's you're definitely playing Frogger to cross 9P. I mean, you're taking your life in your hands, because coming down from the west, coming down 9P, it's a twisty, windy road, and you sort of have to slow down. And you get down to the bottom, and you flatten out, and then people floor it, and they buzz around to Donna's. And people drive 50, 60 miles an hour around that corner. Now, not everybody does that, but some people do. It's really a treacherous spot, and there's gonna have to be significant mitigation. It seems to me a traffic light is the only humane way you could possibly put those two huge buildings on the other side of 9P and then have people expect to cross that road. It's not workable otherwise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hugh.
Pete? All right, Pete Farley, Second Street. My only question would be the restaurant and cars parking along 9P. If anyone goes along and sees where Carson's is, wonderful place, I frequent it. And then, and to have cars to park even along 9P here, because there isn't enough parking, and then that brings up a danger issue. And then also, there's concerns that people would come around and try to park on First Street or Second Street, which are private roads. I don't know if everyone is aware that those are private roads. They are not, the town does not maintain those roads. So there's another aspect which I think would impact the county as far as parking issues along 9P.
Thank you, Pete. Anyway?
I'm all set.
Oh, all set, good.
Yes. Kathy Eichman, Malta, Round Lake Road. I know that this is a very difficult thing to look at, and when you see something all the time, you kind of get used to that look. Unfortunately, those blue covered boats were there much more than winter. And the Donnas were great caretakers of their land for so long, but it is a huge burden to take care of that land, especially to please other people. So I thank the developers for stepping in and looking at some housing that Malta does need. We have no condos, which is great taxes for senior citizens and others. Condos are a great choice, much better than apartments. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate they made different changes in the height to take care of aesthetics. And as much as it sounds crazy that they aren't doing the kayak, I'm kind of glad they're not doing the kayak, because that would include the density of that use, where they are providing some monies for us residents of the town of Malta to provide a private town park, a public town park at Mangino's that was gonna be much better access than we would have there. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Kathy. So let's go here, and then we'll hit the people outside the room. Would you like to say something?
Sure. Michael Funk, 810 Malta Avenue Extension.
Thank you, Michael.
I wonder if I could get more clarity on this, the county planning board's jurisdiction on evaluating whether or not a PDD is in compliance. There are a number of issues. The one thing that we've already touched on is, that you clarified for us, is that the town of Malta can determine the type of zoning that applies to this. They've determined that this is commercial. So let's just go with that. But, and we can take other remedies to deal with that problem. But what about the other issues of workforce housing, for example? Is that something that you can make a judgment on as to whether or not the town is in compliance with that?
Okay, let me try to answer first with what might be called the 30,000 foot, and then Jason has more expertise, and some of the members here have more than I do. New York State, Saratoga County is a home rule legislative body, which means that Malta gets to decide their land use rules. The residents elect the town leaders And by the laws of New York State, they could decide whatever land use issues they want. They set up the rules. So that's the general. Jason, do you wanna get more specific, or is that enough of an answer?
Well,
Ed?
the town has PUD legislations, not all municipalities have PUD legislation. And the PUD legislation lets the town board change the zoning via the PUD mechanism, because the PUD mechanism is gonna actually create specific zoning for this land that's gonna follow the land once the PUD is formed. If the town didn't have PUD legislation, this project couldn't happen with the current zoning problem. But they do, and that's the purpose of PUD legislation.
So again, it's the same answer really.
Right.
The legislative bodies set the rules. Then the legislative body sets what the planning board can do and not do, although they're under certain rules by New York State. So I've exceeded my 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Matt Murray. I live at number 19 Stony Point Road. Just want to thank the board for including us. I know you didn't have to do this. You didn't have to hear our comments, so I really appreciate it.
Actually, it was a YMCA.
I used to be the Y guy. Yeah, I used to work. So here's my thing. So I learned to swim at Browns Beach when I was a kid, and I now live on the lake, and I'm very, very grateful. And my whole point is, Stillwater was able to save Browns Beach. I won't go into that whole thing, but this property is a beautiful piece of property, and to see it go away from public use. And when the plan first came out, they had the kayaks, maybe 20 kayak spots, and we objected and said that's not enough, and then they eliminated them. So without getting into anything, and I really appreciate, I understand your jurisdiction and your boundaries, but any plan that reduces or eliminates public access to that lake, to me, should be rejected. And a better plan would be, just like Browns Beach, a marina, a restaurant, and a park. And I have some creative ways to fund it, state funnel. Global Foundries is building another plant. That's another thing about the traffic study. 2016 is 7 years ago. Global Foundries has announced they're building a new plant. There's also somebody broke ground yesterday for a new development up in Global Foundries. So what I'm saying is that area is growing. We're gonna see a lot more people. I think we really need to look at a traffic study. The solution for that intersection, you might not like this, a roundabout properly designed would alleviate a lot.
Has Malta got roundabouts?
Yes. Unlike other areas that I'm not gonna get, when I drive through Malta, I never stop. I stop, long enough, there's no traffic lights, it's not like, I'm not gonna mention any towns, you get slowed down. My bottom line, I would like to see public access, the whole idea of eliminating, public access to this beautiful property and putting in commercial space, a dog groomer, a gym, come to the YMCA, we'll take care of it. So I really would like to see a solution that benefits the most people, and I'm very upset with the town of Malta because we voiced all these concerns and they pretty much ignored us. So that's why I'm very appreciative, just that you're listening. I don't expect anything to change, because I'm powerless, but I do wanna just say that I think that our children should have the availability to go swimming or fishing with their father or mother,
Thank you.
and a restaurant we could all enjoy. And
I want you to call my wife and say, Tom's a good listener.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Over there, you wanna say something? No, you.
You don't have anything to say.
Well, I do.
Okay, I'll start the timer.
I probably on 9P, I'm on 9P more than anybody.
Tell me your name, Joe.
Joe Mattek, 80 State Route 9P. We yelled Joe 10 times, so. 80 State Route 9P, Malta. I bike 9P every single day, the length of it. They don't stop at that intersection. You put a stop sign, light won't make any difference. They go through sometimes on 2 wheels past the stop sign, and you're gonna have kids. Parents will say, I wanna go to the beach. There are gonna be, 60 units on that side full of people crossing on both sides. There's no way of doing that with anything that's even been presented to you. And that's something that's gonna show up before the environmental. Before all the other things show up, you're gonna have somebody seriously hurt at that intersection. There's nobody on that 9P as it is now because you've scared all the people off with the traffic. I biked it today from practically the beginning of 9P into the bridge. and, no other bikers, one walker. And it wasn't like that before, they're afraid of the road. And this is gonna make it a lot worse. If you got a solution, I'd like to hear it.
No, I'm not that smart.
Sir?
Yes, my name's Peter Brooks, 5186 Nelson Avenue Extension, which is at least 2 miles away from here. So this does not affect my personal property at all. I'm glad I'm not on the county planning board because you guys have been inundated with all these extra things to read in the last few days, and there's a ton of detail in there. I'm not even gonna try to talk about traffic, talk about why the PDD is a bad idea. I just wanna talk about a bigger idea that I would hope, as a county planning board, you would think about. Saratoga Lake, as far as its visual landscape aesthetic goes, is the jewel in the crown of Saratoga County. People have been coming there for about 200 years to experience the lake. There's many ways to do it, okay? You can fish in it, you can swim in it, you can row in it, you can sail on it, you can motorboat on it. It goes on and on. You can just build a place with a porch and look at it. But I maintain that the biggest use of Saratoga Lake is the visual use. Thousands and thousands of eyeballs go over all around the lake, all year round, all over the place. When you even begin to talk about the visual impact of this place, you have to understand it's not just, oh, what would it look like coming down from Plains Road? Sure, that's one angle. People are gonna see this from all over. All the boaters on the lake, all the people with camps and houses on the shores. This is a huge foot trying to be jammed into a ballerina slipper, okay? All for private profit. I would appeal to you as the county planning board to think about the long-term future of the people who are gonna live here and to realize that protecting the visual beauty of all around Saratoga Lake is an irreplaceable resource. This could be, as was said before, this doesn't have to happen. This could be a park. This could be a beach with public swimming. This could be all kinds of stuff. Yes, the town has purchased the Mangino property. If any of you have ever been there, it's a parking lot with about 60 feet, just one little corner of it, access on the lake, okay? It's never gonna be a great park. So I would appeal to you to think about the future, think about the long term, think about the public values that are really involved here. The town comprehensive plan, in fact, tries to discourage any more intense development around the lake. This goes in the exact opposite direction. Stuff like this belongs up on Route 9 and on Route 67, all the intense developments. Please think of the long-term future and the irreplaceable assets that are here.
Thank you, Peter. I have a nicer ringer now. That was a very annoying ringtone, sir.
I'm John Fraser from 111 5th Street, so our camp is just a little bit off this slide. And thank you for that eloquent view of the big picture, but I'm gonna do something really simple. There are 3 clarifications. This is not an HOA that is next door. It is a private nonprofit landowner that owns the streets. People may be members if they own property, but they all have right of access and use, which means everyone who has property in here has absolute right of access and use to 9P, and that can't be removed by just saying we're gonna move the road, because they can go across that property, that land, they have right of use. So First Street doesn't move even if there's a second access provided. Let's be clear that it's not an HOA, it is a private nonprofit entity, which owns and maintains the road and delegates maintenance to the property owners. So that's one thing. When we start talking about messing with First Street, you're doing a taking. You're doing a taking from a private nonprofit, and you're transferring access or assets to a private entity in New York State, and that is somewhat problematic. So to continue to refer to it as an HOA is inappropriate and incorrect. Secondly, the scale, when we talk about the purpose of a PDD and neighbor uses, we don't need illustrations of the front of the building to compare the size of this to the size of this. I think we have a clear illustration. And lastly, the PDD legislation says that unbuildable slope may not be used in calculating area. Now, if this is 3 acres for commercial, that's acceptable, but 9.9 acres is incorrect according to the PDD legislation, no matter who says it. So it's not 9 acres, you have to disallow a lot of the stuff that's shown in green that's being aggregated as if it's part of the land, so I asked about the density. The density and coverage is not related to 9 acres, it's related to a much smaller calculation. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Yes, young lady?
Yes, my name is Susan Coldman, and I live at 9 Featherfoil Way in Malton. And I have a couple of observations. Well, I'm speaking on behalf of a number of my good friends who are concerned but not here because they live in Stillwater. Saratoga Ridge is a condominium community just in back of the Stewarts, and they get to 9P and to the Northway by what? 9P. So I think they're not represented, but they do have an interest, and I would think the Saratoga board might have some interest in their concerns about congestion. My concern about congestion relates to the fact that I live in Luther Forest. I'm in Ermenlair, which is the northernmost community in Luther Forest. And I've been observing for the past couple of weeks the traffic pattern. There are a lot of people who come down Kramer Road or come down 9P to get to the Luther Forest communities, especially if they've been up to Saratoga or up to Glens Falls. You know, if they're going south down to the Capital District, they'll use all the roundabouts and they'll go through exit 12. If this happens and you get traffic lights and you get people all over the places in cars and whatever, Kramer Road's gonna get a lot more traffic. And that's gonna come as a surprise to those homeowners there, and if you've ever tried to turn left on 9P going off Kramer Road, forget it, you can spend your life doing that. So I know Malta's answer is probably another roundabout. But also, I wanna reflect your concern that these two parcels in green, the little skinny one, which is unbuildable and not in great shape, and this big, very sloped area, I mean, it's not. It is a lot of housing on what? I think I've heard 3.5 acres. And I don't care what the town of Malta has done, that seems like it's too much.
Thank you, Susan. Gentleman in the corner?
Hi, I'm Lawrence Levy. Thank you for listening to the public on this. And, I live at 1 Mayapple Way in Malta, and I love Saratoga. I have a boat on the lake, I fish on the lake, I swim in the lake. I'm concerned about the lake. What is the impact of this development going to be on the lake? Is there gonna be additional issues with sewage or other problems that may develop as a result of the additional housing that's going to be there? I don't know if there's been a study of the impact on the lake, but I would ask that that be done if it's not done. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you, Lawrence. Last person in the room with the glasses? Next to Lawrence?
I'm just rating, I'm good.
Okay. So, the people outside, why don't you come in, and then, take, but if anyone sitting down wants to give someone from the outside who wants to speak, that would be a humane thing to do. Yes, your name, sir?
Mark Janey. So, Mangino's, it's not a done deal yet, whether that's gonna be a park. That's a concern, because the Malta Town Board has mentioned that it's a win-win situation for them buying it. But if they cannot come up with a consensus on what to do with the property, they can always sell the property, so they won't lose the money. So it's not a done deal yet that this is a park, which means if they do that option, then there is no public access anywhere for Malta in this region. So that's all I got.
Mark, what was your address, please?
Arrowwood in Luther Forest.
Thank you, Mark. So we're gonna have the fella in the corner and then work our way back.
My name is Dave Ewell. I live in Saratoga Ridge, so there is a representative here today. And our address is Saratoga, but we really pay taxes to Stillwater. We'll figure that out. My only comment, my pessimistic comment is if this gets approved in some manner, I challenge the developer to build a pedestrian bridge across Route 9P at your expense.
Thank you, Dave.
My name's Zach Pelletier. I live up in Thimbleberry. This won't exactly make me the most popular guy in the room, but when we compare it to what's there right now, which is boat storage, I think having a restaurant on the lake and higher taxes for the town is a benefit to the town, so I am in support of the project.
Okay,
Thank
sir?
My name's Andrew Bodine, I live on Wineberry Lane. I have concerns about the traffic study being done at low traffic time period. I heard from the hallway that there was no summer months for the traffic study when Saratoga population doubles or triples because of the track. I'm also concerned about the ruining of the view as I come down Plains Road. And my other concern is with the PDD, the affordable housing portion of it that's required, that people aren't gonna really be able to afford it. That the affordable housing is gonna be, I've heard, is about 750 square foot apartments, and that it's not gonna be affordable.
Thank you, Andrew. Sir?
Rich Rowland, 563 Route 9P. I'm a native of Saratoga, born and raised here. Spent my early years growing up going to Browns Beach, UK Ross Park, and Panza family has been friends of mine since I was in kindergarten, and I don't think it's a good use of the land. We've spent many, many years trying to clean up the lake after everything that's happened to it way back in the heyday. And I think putting this kind of population at that south end of the lake is not a good thing to do. I'd also ask, has there any studies been done on the north end of the lake of accidents of cars trying to get out of 550? And there's been a lot of them, and it's a nightmare. And I've been on the bridge backed up all the way to Stewart's, people waiting to get up Union Avenue with traffic trying to get out of that location. Was never a big fan of Water's Edge either. My opinion from the lake, it's an eyesore, and I'd hate to see us lose that view coming down the lake, so that's it.
Thank you, Rich. Is there anyone outside, or have we all had a chance to voice our concerns? And if not, we'll open it up to the board. Okay, board members.
What's the posted speed limit there? I believe it's 35.
85 is following. Can I just say something before we get started?
I got a minute.
I don't know, if you could, Lindsay Buckhead left, she's the planner for the town of Stillwater, but there's gonna be a study conducted, a cycle study on Route 9P this summer. So if you reach out to the town of Stillwater, Lindsay Buck, and ask her about that, she can give you more information.
I lived that long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Okay.
Devin, you were saying something?
No, I was just asking what the posted speed limit was.
Okay, 35.
35.
Are there any board members who want to weigh in?
It's inevitable that the property is gonna get developed, whether it be a single-family residence on that lot, whether it be the 15 to 18 homes that are there, or whether it's gonna be condos. Everybody's gotta realize that it's gonna be developed. The thing, let me finish, I just wanted to say, you have to remember the duty of the county planning board, what our role is here. But I'll say from a planning board member in a rural town, on this board, that I echo the same comments in the review that the town of Malta did. I think that they did a thorough review on this, and I believe in everything that they wrote, and I'm in favor of that.
Town of Malta Planning Board?
Or Town of Malta Planning Board, I'm sorry, yes.
I just want to.
Yeah.
Right.
That
was
was
sure.
183.
Anyone else want to say something? Board members?
Yes, this.
I will uncharacteristically not give my opinion until you all speak.
What seems lacking is any visual study from the lake for those thousands of eyeballs that was mentioned there. Because we, as a county planning board, we consider generally more of the off-site impacts. rather than the on-site impacts. So it seems like that's lacking in the project record. Is any study other than a front-on building elevation?
And I would join that comment, because when Global Foundry was built, they actually did a visual study of what the stacks of the building would look like from the lake, if you could see them.
Floating balloons.
Yeah, I remember that.
And this obviously has way more impact on the visual part of the lake than Global Foundry.
There was a visual impact done for the residential units subdivision on Snake Hill as well. That was presented.
That's right, yeah.
Those that was at Ritz.
Yes.
So just to clarify what's before us is the
Can we let
P.
Don just?
Sorry,
well,
you-
yeah.
sorry.
Well, I did have some traffic questions, because as I looked through it, and I was out of town until yesterday, so I haven't seen the full, and I read through the study, but it seems like there was mention of minimal impact yet for two intersections, one before mitigation, one without mitigation. The wait time, technically it only drops one letter grade in DOT's ranking system, but the wait time doubles. One of them goes from 36 trips in the peak to 71, and the other from 25 to 48. So it may be an incremental drop, but the percentage of increase is big. And also, the town's review engineer asked for revisions to the report, and I didn't see anything was addressed to address the town traffic comments. Did I miss an update from the applicant?
So everything that was submitted to me by the town of Malta went out in those two emails, so I could summarize that. I did not see anything from the town engineer after the November 29 of 22 letter, which I think you're
That's the
referencing
one,
here.
right.
Yes, that's the last correspondence I had that was submitted, provided by the town of Malta.
And also in the applicant's traffic report, there was mention, because the actual counts were not during the summer, that they didn't expect an increase in the project traffic during the summer season. And that, I'm not a restaurant owner, but that seems incongruous to what we see on Saratoga Lake. That businesses want to increase, they want to attract more business when there's more people around. So that seemed like a gap in the logic of the traffic, and I'm not a traffic engineer, it's just using local, right, local knowledge. And I think that's other than that, then drainage will be a challenge, but I understand the DEC has their requirements. Those are my comments, and some gaps in the traffic, and then visibility study.
So what's before us today is what? The PDD?
So we have, the original PDD came forward last year, about a year from now, or a year ago, for a PDD referral to the local planning board. We requested additional information, that went to the local planning board, they denied it. The town has made a couple modifications, taken out the public access, adding in the $3,500 mitigation fee, and reduced the units to 85. Are there any other modifications? Those are the three main ones, correct?
Correct, and the reduction of the height of the
One
main
building.
building
Yeah.
A, from
Yeah.
3 stories to 2.
So we are referring, and we are reviewing an original referral on a PDD that's been amended, and they need county planning board review under general municipal law 239 prior to the town board making a decision. My correspondence with the town indicated that depending on the outcome of this board, they would like to set a public hearing in July.
So we will see this again for site plan?
Yes. However, the density, use, all that will be established if this PDD is granted.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, to me, a big issue of all this density is stormwater has gotta be addressed. And you're not gonna put stormwater on the slopes. It's all gonna be, I'm guessing it's all gonna be under pavement type stuff. And
At the last town board workshop, they, Scott Lansing explained, way over my head, but what exactly that type of system would be, and it is all underground.
No, I would assume that stormwater is just a function of money. If you put
Yeah.
enough money in it, you can.
Right.
well, you still need it.
I know.
You still need area, you're not gonna put it under the building.
Yeah, I mean, they can't get approved without it.
Right. So getting back to the point in the question, let me just kind of tag on Don's and Ed's comments on the site visual impact. Visual impact is actually a point in seeker. It should be addressed in seeker. But before us is, in essence, it is a PDD, which is the same thing as a rezone issue. And typically, from a county planning standpoint, a rezone is a local issue, not a county issue. So I'm trying to understand what inter-community countywide impacts there are as our test for this application at this point in this board. So not to say that all of the comments, I greatly appreciate all of the impassioned comments that were made. There are site plan issues for the majority of them. Something that the members here, the community here can appreciate is that because it's a PDD, it's going in front of an elected board as opposed to a appointed board. Your planning board is an appointed board. Your town board is an elected board. So those folks, you're in control of those folks. They control the planning board. So those are the guys that you really want to work with and think about every time you go into that voting booth, what power those folks have. So from our perspective, from my perspective as a planning board member and testing this application against countywide intercommunity impact as a PDD, again, not looking at it from what the site points are, I don't see those impacts, frankly.
I understand everything you said.
Thank you.
Cynthia.
First of all, the one thing that's a plus is I think it would improve the stormwater management. Obviously, there is none now, and the site's probably putting toxins in the lake. But there are a lot of other things that are kind of problematic with it, I think, not the least of which is the visual impact that we haven't seen. It doesn't really conform to the comprehensive plan, either the 2005 plan, which is in effect now, or the unadopted, I guess it's gonna be 2021, even though we started in 2019, plan. It hasn't been adopted, and none of that, doesn't conform in a lot of different ways to that. Not the least of which is they strongly suggest PDDs should not be used without a significant public benefit. And I don't think that the money that you're proposing is that significant. Now, whether or not that's something we could, if that's something we should be considering or not. The other thing is I tried to look at the 96 pages of the traffic study, but being, just a, lowly bookkeeper, I couldn't really understand much of it. But it's hard for me to understand how this project cannot affect the traffic on 9P. It's like, you're putting, if there's 85 housing units, there's, I would say at least 150 cars going in those housing units and going in and out of there, and then of course, like I asked before, pedestrians crossing the street, and the impact on that is gonna be a county road, so it's just, like I said, I'm not a traffic engineer. And, the other thing is, it doesn't even remotely, address the workforce housing, starter home, retirement home issue, other than the letter of the law says, it's square footage, but, if you put a 750 square footage apartment facing the lake, somebody will pay $800,000 for that. So being smaller will not make it affordable or attainable, so in any way. So those are my concerns for the project. Like Ian, I know this site not only will be developed, it should be redeveloped. Mostly because of, the integrity of the lake. But I think this is just a lot for that piece of property, or those pieces of property.
Thank you, Cynthia. Marcia.
I have nothing more to say that hasn't already been said. Something will be developed there at some point.
And should be developed.
Absolutely.
It should be
It's-
redeveloped.
It's not a nice site to look at the way it is now, that's for sure, so.
And I think that was the point of our original referral letter, was request additional information. And you've got to balance that public benefit through the PDD with the underlying zoning and finding that balance. Is the public benefit enough to waiver from the R4 and R1 underlying zoning? So just to clarify Devin's point, so under general municipal law, your review does include official municipal and county development policies as may be expressed through comprehensive plans, capital programs, and regulatory measures. So those policies in the town of Malta are, those GEIS studies, comp plans, master plans, and those policies that have been established are able to be looked at, whatever your opinion is on those, by this board.
I don't think we've seen the latest GEIS. I don't recall seeing it. unless
The
it was
GES findings.
Not here
GES.
the one day I missed in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
The GIS, I think, was redone in 2017,
Yeah.
was the updated GIS for town.
From 2010 to
From
2017.
So,
I don't
in the
recall us
comments,
seeing
yeah,
it.
it was in the comments that
Good.
were submitted out to the planning board, so the materials received from the town of Malta question whether it complies with the 2006 GEIS, and they're waiting for a determination whether it complies with the 2021, or 2017 statement of findings. So those two right now
We don't
are,
know.
are outstanding.
Okay.
I appreciate the comments. And we
I'm just
usually,
clarifying.
when we make decisions, sometimes we include comments as well. So the comments that you brought up and you just mentioned, certainly valid. Those are things for the municipal board to review, in my opinion, and make a decision on whether or not they comply. That's not our test to do. I don't think.
No, and
Our
that's-
test is it a countywide or intercommunity impact?
Correct.
A
And that-
rezoning of a piece of property, or is it a local decision? That's really what it comes down to. I'm not sure how.
As it relates to intercommunity and countywide impacts.
Correct, yeah, and I'm not sure if this was rezoning from, R1 to commercial, it's the same test. This just happens to be to a PDD, and that board, the town board, gets to specify, negotiate what the specifics of that particular zone is for this PDD. That's what the benefit of a PDD is. I'm sorry to hear that the town is gonna eliminate PDDs, because I think it's a wonderful tool. It enables a planning department to look at different opportunities that many people don't think about today.
It's not eliminate, like the town of Boston, I think, eliminated them. It's limit their use is what it says, and it says specific reasons why. One more thing that I think is of significant note is the fact that the town of Malta Planning Board unanimously gave this a negative, recommendation.
Yeah, that weighed on me, that was very
Twice
unusual.
they did.
It was. Yeah. Well, no. Yeah.
So one other thing too that I forgot to say in my notes here too, but we're still finding our way on it and we're feeling the impacts of it. But one thing all the communities around the lake and the city are experiencing is Airbnb influx.
Yeah.
That has certainly had an effect on all the towns in the city, especially with the traffic all around there. And that's something else to consider as well.
Another note on that, at the workshop, that question was asked if there could be language in the PDD that said that these had to be owner occupied units to limit that Airbnb, impact, and, that the developer said that, no, that they didn't wanna add that language to the PDD, it would be an HOA maintained thing, but what's to stop, a corporation from buying up 20 of these and keeping them, there's just,
That's happening.
yeah.
Interesting point, yeah. So, most of the members on this board have known me for a long time. And I generally always agree with Devin when it comes to, not interfering with local decisions. I mean, I was in the development community for about 30 years, and which I'm now almost 9 years out of that game, thank God. Actually, I thank my wife. So it's uncharacteristic, saying the same thing differently. I don't like to interfere with legislative bodies, and I've been very, very consistent with that. This is kind of really different, because when I saw the planning board who lives there, I don't live there, you know, that's really making a statement which is weighing on my decision making. And the first thing that I said, I think the first like 5 minutes of this meeting, was when this board denies something, we're forcing a supermajority, that's really impacting. So on things like area variances and use variances, where we don't have the case being made, it's really unfair to force a supermajority. This board already has a supermajority, no matter what we do. So I try to be practical, you know, and not just, you know, follow theory, you know, the rules are, you know, X, Y, Z. So if we've exhausted this, does someone other than me wanna make a motion?
So you have a couple options, right, to the board.
Jason?
No, I just laid out for the board to either approve, disapprove. Do you go back to request additional information for the folks that asked additional questions? Or is there no significant countywide community impact? So those are sort of the questions for this board.
So does someone wanna make a motion?
Well, I'll make a motion for a notice of incomplete, because again, I think without the town engineer's confirmation of the traffic study, and without a visual assessment of what this looks like, besides a one view architectural rendering, I think it's incomplete.
I'll second that.
Can I just jump in real quick? Sure. I just wanted to note one thing, the town engineer has, I assumed that had been sent as well from the town of Malta, but the town engineer, and I have the town engineer's letter here, it indicates traffic counts were properly adjusted to account for seasonal conditions, indicates that 85 multifamily residential units in the restaurant, the trip generation estimates are accurate, the intersection analysis are accurate, the analysis appropriately account for the future northbound right turn lane on Plains Road, that was included. So they did, that was dated November 29th.
But let me clarify. That's in November 29th letter. The conclusion was, based upon our review of the traffic evaluation, the applicant should revise our report to address our comments as well as addressing any additional comments. That is the last correspondence was sent to us from the town of Malta. So I just want to be clear.
Ideally, it should be updated now, in the summer.
Right, and then the town engineer look at it again.
Well, I guess if I may, my point here is that it seems as though the concern is whether or not the traffic studies represented the summer traffic, and it does, right? So the engineer has said it was properly adjusted to account for seasonal conditions. The questions, which they wanted an update, were related to whether or not we owned the fence and the vegetation east of First, right? So there's very minor questions that they had on some of the visual aspects of the traffic conditions. That's my only point, is the numbers I don't think will change.
Well, yeah, but it's sort of a cop-out by the traffic engineer to do the counts not in the summer. They could have easily done the counts in the summer.
They could literally do them now.
Right.
And if they did them now,
Or they
you're
could-
at the end of the school year, which is.
Or you could do them when the track opens. You know?
Is there any more discussion? It was a motion made and a second.
Well, I just second the comment on the visual, because the visual is certainly a countywide impact that affects multiple towns. And if it isn't done, it's not done.
Can I just interject one moment? We did provide visual pictures from, excuse me, We did provide visual,
Now, we let everyone talk.
that's right.
Okay.
So
This is-
I am the
this is-
developer for the project. We did provide visual impact from the lake at the request of the town, several different angles. So we did provide that to the town. That was not something that was requested. We certainly could have provided that if that was the case to this board, but we did provide that to the town. We went through this with the town. And I think it's important to note that. This was something the town looked at, and they agreed that after looking at that and the adjustments that we made, that it was acceptable.
If you'll let anyone speak.
And with respect to the
As long as you keep
traffic.
it short,
And
as
with-
long as you keep it short.
Oh, yes.
Can I finish? Can I just finish? With respect to the traffic, I keep hearing this idea that we should redo the traffic study in the summer. As Justin has said, I think 3 times, they did seasonal adjustments for summer traffic around the lake. It was looked at that. Well, I would say read the traffic study. I'm not an engineer for traffic, either is Justin. I suspect nobody in this room, but it was looked at and it was accommodated for the increased density of traffic in the summertime.
But it could have been, the study could have been done in the summer, and then you would have had actual numbers in the summer, and there's nothing better than that. And you did counts 3 times, and you avoided the summer.
Again, I am not a traffic engineer. I'll know.
Excuse me, I had asked to speak before you, if I could. On this claim that there's been a visual assessment done.
What?
The landscape architecture profession has, over the last couple of decades, developed tools to do large area landscape analyses of things just like the entire landscape surrounding Saratoga Lake. That has not been done. What was done, and I was there at the workshop, was some still photos of drawings of this is probably what things would like if someone was driving down Plains Road. That's one viewpoint of this project, but only one. And as I said before, many more eyeballs are going to be looking at this from all around the lake. And by the way, in that so-called workshop and so-called presentation, there was a so-called video which nobody could make work. So nobody really saw anything, and someone had to just visually say, well, this is here and that's there. A modern, up-to-date professional landscape analysis of the visual impact of this has not been done. And that's a project that the Saratoga County Planning Board ought to take on for the whole.
Thank you, we understand what you're
Lake
saying.
Basin.
So are there any other board members who want to comment before we have a vote?
So if it's request additional, I just need a list of what those items are, and so we can try to capture that in a letter.
So go with seeker, visual impact study, and
closure on the traffic analysis.
yeah, seasonal traffic study.
Anything else? Okay,
Parking?
have I ever called for a roll call vote?
We
Have
have
I ever
had
done
roll
that?
call, we had roll call vote at Global.
Okay, roll call. John, you're up.
I made the
You
motion,
made the
so
motion.
I'm in favor.
Okay. Marcia, you're second.
Yes.
Cynthia,
Well,
the motion was to incomplete.
incomplete,
Request additional.
request additional information.
You could vote yes, no, or
I can
that's
vote
pretty
yes or
much it.
no. I guess I'll say yes. If I say no, I'm only voting to not request additional information. And it sounds like that's likely gonna pass anyway, so we won't, we won't be approving or disapproving it, so I'll
Deborah,
say
you
yes.
seconded, so I
Yes.
assume you're on. Ed?
Yes.
Ian?
Yes.
Yes. So motion passes. Everyone, thanks for coming. There's a chance we can